CPD Show. Welcome back to That CPD Show, and today I'm joined by Sarah Lee. Sarah Lee is the author of the book Dear Aimee, and we're going to discuss that book today. Sarah, thank you for joining me. It's great to.
It's great to be here, Chris.
Yeah, great. And you're leading in Vibe Church. Tell me a little bit about Vibe Church.
Yeah, so this is a church in High Wycombe. My husband and I have been part of AOG for longer than the church has been part of AOG. The church joined AOG, I think it was in 2022, but we've been here for 5 years, nearly 5 years now, which is a bit crazy. And yeah, we're based in High Wycombe, which is where my husband's from. I'm obviously not from there because I don't have a southern accent. I'm from Sheffield. So that's where we are.
Brilliant. Yeah, I did notice a slight accent, which was probably not a High Wycombe accent.
Definitely not.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to talk about your book, Dear Aimee, just in a second. But it is tradition on this podcast to talk about dessert as well. And I'm really excited to find out, what is your favorite dessert?
See, this is a tricky one for me because I like lots of desserts, but I'm actually more of a savory person. So if you're going to go to a restaurant, and my husband would always look at the desserts first because he loves sticky toffee pudding, but I'm always let's just look to see what's on the savory menu. But if I'm going to choose a dessert I would go for, it would probably be apple crumble and custard. And I like making that too when you get a chance. But I love, apple crumble, custard, even with a bit of ice cream on top. If you can mix the heat, I love mixing the heat and the cold, it's nice.
Yeah.
So probably apple crumble with custard is my fave.
It has actually been one of the top rated desserts on the podcast. Everyone loves an apple, and why not? Let's be honest.
And why not?
Because it's a classic. It's a classic
Especially
British
this
dessert.
time of year, isn't it? Because it's so cold. You just want a nice bit of something hot in the evenings.
It's true, isn't it? And then I always think with the custard, I think now we've had a lot of discussion around custard choice. I never would have thought that this was a thing, but it's a huge thing amongst the ministers of AOG.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please enlighten me. What is?
Well, some people
custard?
Some people insist on bird's custard.
Well, okay.
If you know bird's custard,
yeah.
I've never had bird's custard before, and
is that the custard powder? I'm sure that's the custard powder.
I think it might be. It's that kind of really bright yellow and blue one.
Okay,
I think. And then some people really insist on the kind of Madagascan vanilla custard. Yeah. And then some people are okay with anything, and they'll just say, middle of the road ambrosia.
Yeah. Okay.
What custard are you going for?
If other people were bringing custard, if we had guests, and like sometimes Aunt's mum would do this, it would probably be the really posh, whatever you can buy from Waitrose custard. Personally, I am happy with whatever. So being a mum and with 3 children, I tend to buy whatever Aldi sells. There are other supermarkets available. But yeah, so usually it would just be whatever comes in a what is it, like a box, like a carton, whatever.
Okay, yes.
Just standard, just normal, pre-made, whatever I can open and put out quickly custard.
Yes, and of course, I have to ask also about ice cream choice. This has been another point of contention.
Really?
Oh, wow. Absolutely, because some people insist on one type of ice cream, one type of flavor with it. What are you going for? You're going
it would probably just be vanilla with this kind of dessert. If it was an apple crumble with custard, it would just have to be vanilla ice cream. But that's not my favorite ice cream. My favorite ice cream is mint choc chip.
I love mint choc chip. It's a great ice cream.
Best ice cream.
It is really, really good. I often go for that. And my other bizarre favorite of ice cream flavor is coconut.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, we went to Florence in the summer, and they had, obviously it's Italy, so they have an array of ice cream, and that was really hard to choose. But we had, although from Italy it's not ice cream, it's called gelato.
Yes.
And it's slightly different. But yes, we had that, and I think one of the kids had coconut flavor at one point. But yeah, it's quite refreshing, isn't it? Coconut flavored stuff is refreshing. So on a hot day, you probably need something more like a sorbet type coconut ice cream rather than a like milk based ice cream to get you cooler.
Yeah, although I have a feeling that a coconut ice cream with a crumble would just be a bit a step too far. Or would it be? Hang on a second. I'm doubting myself because I think it could be actually quite good.
That could be quite good. Maybe you need a little bit more fruit in the crumble, like
maybe
you had like a mixed summer fruit and apple crumble. with the
Yes,
coconut. That would be nice.
that
Right.
would be good.
I'm going to try it, Chris, next time. I haven't got time to make it before this weekend because I'm assuming you're coming to MIT, but I will make some.
Brilliant.
Let
Okay,
you know
okay.
how it
Great
goes.
stuff. Okay, well, that's an excellent choice of desserts. Yeah, very, very good, and a classic, really. Apple crumble. You can never really go wrong with it. We're going to dive into the book that you've written,
Yeah.
Dear Aimee. Just to start off, just to start off with, what inspired you to write the book? Just give us a little bit of a background about what the book is about and what inspired you to write the book.
So the book really is a 10-year journey with our daughter Amy, who's now 12, nearly 13. And really, I don't know sort of where it really started, I guess. I probably when Amy was about 2, I started writing blogs, mostly just about our experience as a family with a child with a disability, going abroad, trying to get her in the pool. One of the things that happened on one of our trips was that we went to Greece. We'd been a few times, so we knew the airport well, we knew the place well, but I think she was about I think she was about 4, and we went through the airport at Greece, and her pushchair. So it was like she doesn't have a wheelchair that looks like a standard wheelchair. She has a wheelchair that looks a bit like a pushchair. She's getting something different soon, hopefully, that's a bit more supportive. But yeah, this particular one just looked like a big pushchair, and like it wasn't a fold down one, like normally they fold down to be really long. This one we left it up because we were like, it's not a pushchair, it's a wheelchair. I had stickers on it and everything, but it went through baggage reclaim. Honestly, my heart was in my mouth when it came up through, when it comes up through the where the bags come out, and I was like, oh my goodness, if that's a mangled mess, we are really screwed on this holiday. We've got nothing else that she can sit in. It was like serious panic stations. So I started just writing blogs about the things we were experiencing, things like just even stuff like going to play centres. When you're going to play centres with a child that's 3, most of the other children that are there that are 3 are running around like crazy people, but she just couldn't do that. And so I just started writing blogs really about that experience, misunderstandings regarding disability, those sorts of things, feeling of loneliness, when you're in that kind of environment where you're with your friends and their children running around, but you're still in the baby pool kind of thing. So yeah, and then I started, I think it was January 21, I think it was, and I joined Rachel Marston, who's a wonderful, wonderful lady from Soul Church. She still does it now, does a course called Find Your Voice, which is a course for women in leadership, to help to increase, things like confidence, but she also gives really practical help. So she really helps me with preaching and things like that. So I was on this course, and one of the things that we talked about during that time was having dreams. And I was really open. I said, look, I don't really have dreams. I had dreams probably when I was younger. But like because of Amy and the things that we experienced with her, I just said, I just don't really dream. I just have to live day by day. And sort of we had a really good chat about it afterwards. And Rachel said, wanted to encourage me to think about that. And one of the things that I'd said was about writing a book. So really that was probably when it like the ball really got rolling, I guess, to writing the book. So yes, began that process.
Yeah, I was reading through the book a few weeks ago, and one thing that struck me was just at the end of each chapter, you have a little message to Amy
Yeah.
in there, and I think it's really very much a reflection of your journey through that. Could you talk to me a little
Yeah.
bit about maybe what you've learned in terms of faith and going through having a child with disability?
Yeah, I think for me, like I grew up in church, so for me, faith has always been present, and Jesus has always been present in my life. And so I think really that our experience is that knowledge is power. But knowledge and wisdom come together. When we put faith in the middle of it all, it's knowledge and wisdom. And so we've learned along the road, 12 years that Amy's been alive, that the more we know, the better equipped we are, but also the more wisdom that we gain through faith, through scripture, through being with faithful people, the more equipped we are as parents to be able to deal with a child who's got genetic disorder, who's disabled, who needs a lot of care. And so for me, I think that was the thing that really is part of our journey. I'll tell you a story. When Aimee was just diagnosed, only a few days into this journey, we had an appointment with some genetic doctors. We were in Wakefield at the time, and this a particular I talk about it in the book, but this particular appointment was a really strange and surreal experience for us. We didn't take Aimee with us; it was just me and Aunt, and we were sat in this room with two doctors, and they basically told us there was no hope. There was absolutely nothing that they could provide, nothing they could say, nothing that they could do, or give us. Here's a place you can go. Here's who you can speak. Nothing. It was just a case of your life is going to be really hard from now on, and you should be prepared that your daughter won't live very long. And we came out of that meeting, that particular appointment, feeling as if they had, we'd been put like a boulder on our shoulders. And we both just walked out of that room and just went, I don't think so. Shoved it off. And, we just said, this is not what we believe. The faith that we have, and the faith that's been instilled in both of us from being very young, tells us that this is not God's best. And however much I believe that Aimee has created who she is, and I don't like Rett syndrome. I don't like the disability that she's got. Sometimes I really don't like it. I don't like what it does, but I believe that she is still fearfully and wonderfully made. And so from that day onwards, we decided that faith was going to be the thing that we use in every situation. Prayer, scripture, what does God say? What does God have to say about this? And so I think that has built resilience in us, because no matter what we face, we try very hard not to sort of go into panic mode. Even this week, like one of the things Aimee suffers from is epilepsy, but she also has non-epileptic seizures as well, which at the moment no one really knows where they're coming from. And so she's had like a tricky weekend. That's what we call it when she's having a lot. She's had a tricky day or a tricky weekend. And it got to the point on Monday where like she'd had quite a few, and we were thinking, does she need to be seen? School were panicking. And I was like, I just don't think we need to panic about this. I think we just need to use some wisdom. I think, Aimee's age, the hormones, all sorts of, let's just calm down. And so I think that's just built up this resilience in us, that we've learned to cope, we've learned to manage through adversity, through difficult days, that actually we believe what God says when he tells us that his plans are to prosper us and not to harm us, to give us a hope and a future. We believe that for Aimee. And so that's really where our faith stands, and it's really where the resilience has been brought up in these, difficult times.
Yeah. How's it affected your understanding of God's character? Have you seen maybe God's character work through this situation, and so that you've had a greater understanding of it?
Yeah. So like I said, I've been in church all my life. I've been in church since I was 2. I made my commitment to Jesus when I was 4, if you can believe. So for me, Jesus has always been my friend. And I know some people do struggle with this, and I totally understand, but I've never struggled with the idea that God is my father. I've never struggled with the idea that Jesus is my friend. And so with those two things, I just feel like through all of this experience that I've just learned that the compassionate side of God, I've learned to lean into that so much more, because I know that he's right there, in all of the ups and downs, in the trials and the triumphs. I know that he's there. I believe what his word says when he says, I'll never leave you or forsake you. I believe that. And so, I've come to know more about his compassionate side. I've known his mercy in our lives, getting through those dark and unknown times, particularly with Aimee. In 2017, that's when she started having seizures. And then again, all of that happened and hasn't stopped happening since 2020. And so for us, I think as a family, we lean into the mercy of God, we lean into his grace, we lean into the compassionate heart that he has. And I like I said, his word, it tells us in the Bible, his word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. And I believe that's true for us. I've seen him guiding us. There's been times when we've had to go to the hospital for seizures, and the right doctor has been there at the right time to see Amy to be able to make decisions quickly about her medical needs. Like, I believe that that's God. God has put that person there at that time so that we can be seen quickly, that we can get the medicine that she needs, we can get home quicker. So I just believe that God has everything in hand. He says he's working all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So I believe that God loves Amy, and I believe that she is called according to his purpose. Even through disability, I believe those things. So I know that he has all things in hand.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And you're in an interesting, sort of quite a unique position in that you're a church leader, but you have a daughter with disability. And I think it probably gives you quite a unique viewpoint into how churches can support people with
Yeah,
disability.
yeah.
How do you think? Are there any kind of misunderstandings or better ways that churches could support
Mm.
families with where disability is a factor in the
Yeah.
family?
So I was thinking about this. I think it's not necessarily a misunderstanding. It's about experience and knowledge. So, for example, if you've never been to Disneyland, someone can try and explain to you what Disneyland is like. But until you go, you have no idea. And I think it's a bit like this. If you don't have any experience of being around families with disabilities, you can, I don't expect anyone to understand what it's like who hasn't been there, because that would be really naive to have that understanding. But I think the first thing is that people should just not be afraid. I think we can sometimes be afraid of the unknown. Especially, if you get a family coming into the church, where they've got disabilities or special needs, learning disabilities, and it can feel quite daunting. Um, but we're not very good at stepping out in case we might fail. And one of the things we always say to people is talk to Amy. She may not be able to talk to you, but she loves it when people come and talk to her. You have to acknowledge them. They are still people. And so don't be afraid to come and communicate with her. Amy communicates with her eyes. So if she looks at you, she's on it. She's listening. If she's acknowledging that she likes you, you get the eyebrow raise. So she's there with you, and I think really you got to spend time with people to get to know them. And I think it's the same with Amy. The second thing on that score really is to spend time with the families, get to know them. Now, you can't necessarily invite them round, especially if you've got a child who's got a disability like Amy and she's in a wheelchair. Not everyone's home is going to be accessible. But provide that listening ear, provide support, sit with the families, but most importantly, pray for them. I would say that pray for people. And also ask if they need any help and support. I've learned that if you don't tell people what you need, you don't get. And so when people come to us as a family and they say, "Is there anything that you need?" I will tell them. Because if they're asking, they want to know. So I would say that if you're in a position where you can help a family either through time or finance, I'll tell you a story very quickly. So we had an issue with rats in our garage recently, which was a little bit of a I don't like rats. And this I don't know how many, but anyway, they ate through our fridge. So yes,
Whoa. Okay.
yeah, they ate through the fridge. I went out to the fridge, completely missing. There was the bag of sweet potatoes, but no sweet potatoes, and there was a massive hole in the back of the fridge. Anyway, so long story short, someone who we know emailed me on Sunday and said, "Sarah, you've been on my mind. Is there anything I can pray for? Is there anything that you need?" So I was very honest and I said, "Hey, do you know what I need? I need a fridge." So she gave me the money for a fridge. And I've just learned that you just have to push doors sometimes and you have to ask. And I think as people in church, we need to be generous. We need to be generous with our time. We need to be generous with our skills. If you've got cleaning skills, offer to go and clean the house. Like, I don't. with the best will in the world, I don't have time to do all of that. And I'm very grateful for the people that come and help. People that have made time to come and get to know Aimee and to build friendships with her. We have a lady in church who reads to Aimee on a Sunday morning before the service, and it's just lovely. So I think get to know them, spend time with them, try not to be afraid. Like there's nothing to be afraid of. Just get stuck in, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Um, when I think about churches in our movement, we're unashamedly Pentecostal, and
Yeah.
we with that we comes the full gospel, and healing is in that, and
Yeah.
but sometimes I think where we can maybe that leads to is maybe we haven't articulated as well a
Mm,
theology of suffering and
yeah.
go through that. How is your experience? And maybe you can speak into this through your experience. How do
Mm,
you think ministers could think through suffering and those kind of things, and how we as Pentecostals really can articulate that better for families who are going through situations like disability or sickness or other things like that?
yeah. I think firstly, I would say that if the world only had people in it like you and I, it would be a really boring place. I think that although disability and sickness and all of those things are hard, it is hard work, emotionally and physically draining. But the world would be a different place if we didn't have those kind of people in it. We've got a couple of people in our church, one who's a young guy with Down syndrome, and he is the most enthusiastic worshipper. I love it. I absolutely love it. He's just fantastic. And we've got another young lady. I'm not entirely sure what her disability is, but she's always smiling. And every time I get up to preach, she whoops. Nobody else whoops me. I just love it. So I just, firstly, I would say that I think that, yes, it's hard, but these people are so special. But John 16:33 tells us, Jesus says these words. He says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus says you will experience trouble. It's not a promise, it's just a fact. We will experience difficulty, we'll experience trials, we'll experience trouble, strife, loss, grief. And these are all aspects of things that we will experience because we've lived a life loving people. And Jesus tells us in that scripture not to fear because he's overcome. And we can stand on that. That's a solid rock that we can stand on. And God has used the challenges that we faced as a family to open doors into a world that we would never have access to. We are part of an exclusive club that we never wanted to join. But we have the opportunity to share Jesus with people who probably wouldn't even hear about him if we weren't part of that group. And there are things that opportunities to go to conferences and to be part of parent groups and all those things that we have that gives us, the door into those people's lives. And so we're able to bring hope. We are able to bring strength. We're able to bring Jesus to those people. And so at the end of all of those things, we have testimonies that we can share with people. We have testimonies that we can share with the church to encourage them. We've got experiences that we can share with other people who are living in these difficult situations, who are living with disability, living with illness. It doesn't make it easy. Like, don't read that because it's not easy. It's really difficult. There are times when, like, this week for me has been like quite physically and emotionally draining, and I'm like, I just want to sit under a blanket with a bar of chocolate. But you have to get past that, and you have to go, no, I'm relying on Jesus in this. He is my strength, he is my hope. And we have to go back to that verse that Jesus said we will experience trouble, but it's okay because he's got it. He is the solid rock that we can stand on, and he is the solid rock that we stand on every time.
Yeah, that's a really, really good reminder, and a wonderful verse, and it's I mean incredible verse really
Yeah.
that Jesus says. in this world you will have trouble, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes we don't want to
Like I
say
said, it's
yes
not a
and amen
promise.
to that.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a promise, but it's just a fact.
Yeah,
It's a fact. We will experience trouble. Like I
yeah,
experienced rats in my garage eating through my fridge. It's something that you can't equate that in life. You can't guarantee it. You can't predict it. But it's just one of that life happens, doesn't it?
yeah,
Things come and we have to be prepared in some ways. Some things we can't be prepared for. But we have to no, we have to believe what God says in his word. We believe that Jesus said, I have overcome. So take heart, and he promises peace, and I think sometimes we allow the things of this world to cloud our spiritual eyes, that actually we stop that peace of, Jesus is the Prince of Peace. We stop him doing his job. So actually sometimes we have to just take a breath and just go, right, Jesus, what are you going to do in this situation? What are you going to do through me? What are you going to do through Aimee in this situation? How is she going to have an impact into the lives of these people? And one of the things I talk about in my book is finding ways of communication with Aimee, and one of those, I think the title of the chapter is finding her voice. Silence is not golden. And we have to find ways of communicating with people in their suffering and sit alongside them. Like, we can't take suffering away from them. I can't take Aimee's condition away from her, however much I would like that sometimes. I can't take that away from her. But what we can do is sit alongside people in their suffering. We can pray for them. We can ask, do you need any help? What support do you need? Can I take some burden from you? Do you want me to do some shopping? What can I do to help? And I think sometimes we look at things more from a worldly perspective, and we need to lift our eyes to Jesus and find out, Jesus, what do you want me to do in this situation?
yeah. Great, great. I mean, it's so wonderful to hear about how you've got other people that've got disabilities in your
Yeah.
church. What sort of are there practical things that you've learned along the way that are ways that you've been able to help people with disability to feel included into the life of the church? Are there practical steps that you've taken? What are some of those things so that people with disability really can thrive
Yeah.
in church?
I think the first thing I think really is thinking about practically the space that you have. Now, not everybody has loads of space, and I understand that. We don't have everything sorted out here that I really want. But we'll get there. But I think is thinking about the spaces that you have. The first thing I would say really is having a disabled toilet is not enough. If we're saying we've got a disabled toilet, tick, that's just not enough. Like, that doesn't tick the box for most families. And so really it's thinking about a space where people with older children can go that may need to get changed. Most of the children that I know are not able to go to the toilet. So they need to be changed. They wear pads, they need to be changed. So it's thinking about having a facility that's private, that keeps their dignity. One of the things I would say is if anyone is doing a build of any kind, please contact Changing Places. It's an amazing place they create. They will come and they will help you design and fit a wonderful Changing Places facility where you've got a disabled toilet that goes up and down, sinks that go up and down, an adult changing space, dignity, like a dignity shield and stuff like that. I think for in the modern world that we're living in, if you're doing a new build, you need to have a Changing Places for people to use. And a lot of the churches now, we have cafes and things like that. So we're opening up our buildings to the community at large. Well, the community at large includes these people. So thinking about things like that. Yeah, like I said, just ticking a box saying we've got a disabled toilet. It's not enough. It's got to be more. Things like having wide enough doors for wheelchairs to be able to go through, and making sure that someone's on the door. On a Sunday, make sure someone's on the door, to open the door for someone, for everyone. I think that's it's part of our culture. It should be part of our culture that we welcome people in, by opening the door and smiling, but help people to open the doors. I think the other thing as well, the Bible tells us to make a joyful noise. And it doesn't tell us to be serious. Yes, there are times where we need to be reverent. God is still God. And we have to have the fear of the Lord. But when we're worshiping in a service, like these, Aimee deserves to experience the presence of God just like the rest of us. And if she wants to shout, fine. We've got kids that run around. Like, as long as they're like, I just think, when we've got to give respect to whoever's sharing the word. So, there's got to be a balance. Um, but we want people to feel that they can be enthusiastic. I really remember, I was thinking about this yesterday. I remember I think it was last year, we did a baptism service around Easter, and one of the guys that was getting baptized, they invited some friends, and they brought their son. I think he's about 19, 20, and he's got autism. And it was just brilliant. He was wandering around the room, stood, I'm not joking, right in front of the speaker. It was absolutely, it was just lovely. And like, for me, I don't bat an eyelid. I'm like, do you know what? If that helps you to engage in the service, go for it. And I think we probably need to cut some of our losses a little bit and not be so, um, sort of stuck in our ways that we can't accept people as they are. Jesus tells us to come as we are. And for these people, they do. People with disabilities they have to learn. We have to learn to let them come as they are, take off the restraints. And I think in that, having a space that people can go to where it's a bit quieter. I know some children will struggle with the loud noises. So maybe having a box of ear defenders, something really practical. Having a box of ear defenders, having a box of fidget toys. There's loads of websites, you can get them off Amazon. Stuff like that will just help those families who are coming to feel like you've thought about them. And I think that's important. But I think another point is ask how can we help you? What can we do? What can we do to help you to feel like you want to come, that you want to be here, that you're welcome here. Get people's practical advice, because every family will be different. And we can't facilitate for every need. Like, that's huge. But just little practical things just to help people to feel that they can bring their child or their young person who may have a disability or some learning difficulties and feel included. I think we've got to think about it.
Yeah, that's great. And I'd love to kind of dive into as well there's we talked about the practical side, but also the cultural side of it as well, in people with disability feeling part of the community.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that maybe church leaders could think about to help people with disabilities to really feel part, to make friends, to feel part of the community at large?
Yeah, I think when you talk with families who have children with disabilities and learning difficulties, SEN needs, it's really messy. Like, life with a child with alternative needs is just messy. And so we have to be prepared that including them is going to be messy. And we have to be prepared for that. But I think one of the things that's around at the moment is messy church. Like, messy church is very inclusive. So I think if there's someone who's thinking, I really want to provide for these people, I would seriously suggest getting in touch with Messy Church. Maybe that's something that you guys can do to create an inclusive service. We're not going to ever meet everyone's needs. But maybe that's something that someone could do. If we want to build a culture of inclusion, we want to try and include that in all services. And we do try and facilitate as much as possible for anyone to come in at any time. We've got a room that if kids are struggling, they can go and sit in there. We try to make sure that there's plenty of seating around, especially people need to sit at the back. I think that's the thing as well. It's something to be aware of. Leave some spaces, and wheelchair spaces. Don't put all your chairs out. Leave some wheelchair spaces. Um, and also just making sure that families are aware where the facilities are. Don't leave them to ask. Make sure they know where these places are that they can use and that they can go to. A couple of things that we've seen recently, Soul Church in Norwich, they've just opened a new building last year, and they have a changing places toilet. And for us as a family, whenever we go anywhere, that is one of the first things I look for. Do you have one? Where is it? And so again, letting people know. But one of the things that they do at Christmas, they put on a huge Christmas show, and they invite the special needs school that's near to them to come to a show. So they put on a specific show for the children and the families. They had like 3,000 people, children and families, come to that particular show. And it's, the kids are going to be running around. They're not going to sit down and watch the show, but it's just about making that community feel included. And and then Zoe Church in the US, they do a specific ball. So they put on a huge ball for children and young people with additional needs. And the pictures are always so lovely. But I think sometimes we have to think outside the box. We can't think in the box when it comes to disability and special needs. We have to think outside the box. But the best thing really is to ask the families. If you have a family that come, ask them, how can we help you? How can we help you feel more included? We want you to be here. Jesus loves everybody. He wants everyone in his family. He wants everybody in his kingdom. And it's our job as Christians, as people who follow Jesus, to help everyone feel included. So the best thing to do is ask them.
Yeah, great. I'd love to get your, for you to ask you just to encourage ministers listening to this, watching this. Just how would you encourage them in terms of supporting families with disability? Yeah, just give them an encouragement.
Yeah. I think really, this was one of the points. I sent this to my husband and I said, can you help me on this one? I'd love to get your input on this. And he sent me a message with some really good points, which I hadn't thought of. So this is more him than me. But every day is a compromise. We have to make, as a family with a child who's in a wheelchair, we have to make compromises in normal things like going to the toilet. Or visiting. So in the summer, we took the family to the Sea Life Centre in London, and the lift wasn't working. So they had to use the service lift, which meant we had to be separated as a family. Like, that's a huge compromise that no one else would consider. So I think, we have to make daily compromises in terms of the family life, health, routine, rhythm. And I think really, if there's one thing I would really encourage is try and reduce the amount of compromises that families have to make when they come to your church, when they come to your facility, when they participate in your service. Try and reduce the number of compromises that they have to make. Allow them to engage with church however they can. One of the things I really want to say, please don't worry if people are late. Like, I am never late. I can't even try. I've tried to be late and I can't do it. But please don't worry. If people are late, it's not a problem. You don't know what they've had to go through to get to church. So pat them on the back, welcome them in, lead them to the seat that you've set aside for them, and just let them breathe. Because sometimes getting to church can be a real trial for people. Anyone with a family will know that. But when you've got a child who's got additional needs, that's got medical needs, where you've got pumps and gastro pegs and nappies to change, and just as you're about to leave the house, they explode. Like, just let people be late. Don't worry about them being late. The fact that they are there is good enough. Like, let them feel that they are welcome. So that's the thing I would say. But let's celebrate these people, like, welcome them in with open arms, get to know their names. Don't just talk to the person behind the wheelchair, talk to the person in the wheelchair. They are really important, they are special, they are loved by God, and they deserve our attention just as much as the people behind the wheelchair deserve our attention. So celebrate them, learn their name, learn something about them, ask them questions. Even if they can't answer you, ask them, how are you, Aimee? Are you okay? How's your week been? You'll never get an answer. But the fact is, you spoke to them. Like, you spoke to, like, one of the grandparents at school. She never talks to me. Never. She always talks to Aimee. When I'm stood outside the classroom waiting to pick up the other two, she doesn't talk to me. And she said, I'm really sorry, I'm not talking to you. I said, it's fine, you talk to Aimee. I don't mind. The fact that people are engaging with her is so important, and it makes her feel valued. And I think that's the most important thing, is making people feel valued is so important. So don't be afraid to ask what they need. Think about it. Think about it before they come. Where are these people going to sit? Where can we save seats for them? Even if they don't make it, doesn't matter. reserve some seats, let them, make sure that your welcome team have got exact knowledge about who they are and where they're coming from, and, lead them in so that they feel like they are the most important people.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. I mean, as a parent myself, trying to leave for church when you've had a nappy explosion. Thankfully, those years, those days are thankfully behind me. But
Yeah.
I will never forget those days where you think everything is sorted,
Mm.
and then suddenly, just plans change, and that's part of life. And I think you're absolutely right in that. Just giving people a bit of grace and welcoming them in is a wonderful thing. Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for that. Before we finish, what's next for you in ministry, church life? Are you going to write another book? Is there anything in the pipeline?
I'd love to write another book. I have before this, I wrote a Christmas devotional book, which you can get on Amazon. And I have planned another devotional that I have started writing. I just need the time to finish it. And that is 30 Days with Jesus from the book of Matthew. I love the Gospel of Matthew. I know most people probably wouldn't say it's their favorite, but it is mine. So yeah, I'm hoping to have that done, and then I shall send that off to my sister, who designs and publishes my books.
Brilliant.
So yeah, who knows? Maybe there's another book about Aimee in a few years' time. But obviously I'm on MIT, so that's my focus. And then once I've finished that, I feel called into education chaplaincy, so that's what I'm hoping to move into. But I will let God lead, because He's led me to places I never thought I'd go. So who knows? Watch this space.
Brilliant. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. And for all the ministers watching this, listening to this, you can get Sarah's book on the CPD site. So you can log that, you can read that and log it on there. So that's all available for you. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed diving into that topic and to talk about your book. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Thank you for listening to this episode of That CPD Show. For more episodes, why not subscribe and give us a review? It really helps us out. See you next time.